Hey, hi, how are you? Welcome back to Magic. Today we're going over a Historic Brawl deck that I've been having some of the most fun I've ever had in Magic with. This deck is Kykar Wins Fury. You don't know about this card? Well, clearly you're not a Jeskai player because this card is probably one of the coolest Jeskai commanders out there. Like, just look at him, first of all. Giant Birdman. What's not to love? Second of all, he is a 3/3 flyer for 1 and a Jeskai. Blue, red, white. Flying whenever you cast a non-creature spell. Notice how it just says non-creature spell. We'll get to that. Create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And Kykar has an additional ability here of sacrificing a spirit to add 1 red mana. You can make a lot of free mana with Kykar. Unfortunately, personal cards here don't have like the best way to go infinite with him. But there is possibilities. I'm going to slowly go over my deck here as to what I've been using in, as to what's available and what I could like get my hands on as far as Historic Brawl goes. I'm also working on a true to card commander deck, but it's a lot more expensive and it's a very long process because there's some very expensive cards that synergize so well with Kykar. I'm trying to figure out if they're worth the deck, so to speak. Let's just kind of hop into this and start by going through with like showing off the categories here. Like I have my creatures in this column. I have all of my instants. There's a lot in that column. All of my sorceries here. All of my artifacts there. My enchantments. And then my planeswalkers. Might be a little jitter in the video there. I had to pause to take care of something. But let's talk about creatures. Iceberg Sentinel doesn't really fit the theming of the deck. And he's kind of like just a meta-y card draw engine, but honestly, if you're playing a deck with white in it and Historic Brawl / Commander, most people are just going to put a Iceberg Sentinel in there. It's not really that hard to deal with. It's a 1/1, so it's very easy to blow up. If you're not running anything that pumps him, he's only going to make people pay one. So if you get him early, he can generate some card draw for you pretty early, but it's not the craziest thing. Delver of Secrets is in here too. He's my other 1-drop that I have as far as creatures are. He's a pretty okay one. He allows you to essentially look at the top card of your deck every turn. And you can reveal it to transform him into a 3/2 flyer, which can just be kind of an annoyance in Historic Brawl, because he can very quickly whittle someone's life down. Surprisingly enough, Reality Chip did make it into this deck. It almost seems like it doesn't work at first glance, because it's such a slow curve of having to play it for 2 and then have something already out to reattach it to for 3. But if you're ramping with any other form of ramp that you have out there, usually in the form of artifacts or something, which is much more prevalent inside of actual Commander than it is inside of Historic Brawl, at least for Jeskai, it can be really powerful. Being able to cast spells from the top of your library with something that can sacrifice the tokens it creates for extra mana, it can be really, really good. I highly recommend Reality Chip with Kykar. Or Kykar, or however you say his name. Electrostatic Field, classic. Deals 1 damage to your opponent when you cast a spell. Kind of like Kessig Flame Breather. We have 2 of them. They're pretty powerful win cons in terms of just, if you can keep casting spells, they can keep plinking your opponent down slowly. Heartfire Immolator is one of the prowess cards we use, where they just get stronger the more spells you cast. You can sack it to deal its power to a creature or planeswalker. It can be pretty good if you're kind of a board stall. You can sack a bunch of shit with Kykar to make tons of extra mana, cast a bunch of spells, slam Heartfire Immolator as like a 10/10 into something, and then sack it to deal its power to something else anyways. Smoldering Egg, pretty okay. It can be a pretty solid win con up there with Flame Breather and Electrostatic Field. If you can get it transformed, cast instant sorcery, it's dealing 2 to any target, pretty powerful. Young Pyromancer is here to just make a ton of little tiny annoying elementals. Electromancer makes stuff cheaper. Lorehold Apprentice can make all of your spirit tokens tap for damage, which can be pretty powerful. If you can get a bunch of them out on field 1 turn, and the next turn play Lorehold Apprentice, tap like 7 tokens, and then just hit people for an extra 7 damage. Archmage Emeritus is a draw engine. He's pretty okay. Stormkiln Artist is pretty good for making extra mana. Metaform Hellkite is a win con. You get this thing out on field, you play like a bunch of expensive sorceries and instants, and all of a sudden you have an army of red dragon tokens ready to go ham. Hinata is just a good card for a Jeskai and for stuff that is trying to play a lot of spells that target things. It's also a pretty good deterrent for your opponents. It draws a lot of aggro because people want to get Hinata off the field so they can play stuff for cheaper. Leer is fine. It's Alchemy Leer, so it's not as good. It's kind of hard to get out, but he really does a good job when he gets out onto the field. Once again, pausing to, like, collect my thoughts while I talk about shit. You notice there's a lot of one-costs in here. They're mostly just to synergize with Electrostatic, with Kessig, with Smoldering Egg, with Kykar, with the Electromancer in a way, and the Pyromancer in another way. And one of our Planeswalkers over here is Saheeli, but we'll get to her later. Boon of Safety is fine. It's mostly just for a little bit of protection if people are playing removal spells, and it gives you a free scry. It's really useful to keep your commander alive, as is God's Willing. And if you have both of them in your hand, it's only 2, and you can make 2 tokens for that. They're white, and Kykar can only make red, but still, Kykar, however you say his name. Manatide is fine. It's mostly just to have something that can just slow your opponent down. Kind of up there with Offer You Can't Refuse. 1 cost kind of counter spell that just kind of keeps your opponent slow. Consider Opt, Otherworldly Gaze, all there to just kind of look through the top cards of your deck and find the thing you want. If you already have your commander out on field, they're just really good at creating a bunch of extra crap to throw at your opponent. Wash Away, kind of a classic for Commander and Historic Brawl. Maybe a 1-cost blue to counter target spell that wasn't cast from their owner's hand, which often is their commander. Play with Fire, just kind of a nice burn spell, gives you a little scry. Can just be helpful for finishing things off. Can also be useful for finishing your opponent off. Blackfield Hazard, dual-faced, land / extra 1 point of damage that can make stuff exile. Stainful Stroke, good counter spell. Draw Disruption, same idea as Spikefield. Negate because negations are good, kind of up there with Dovin's Veto. Lightning Strike, it's fine. I'd probably rather have a Lightning Bolt than a Lightning Strike. Honestly, I might even include both of them in the deck if I get them both. Galvanic to double stuff. Divide by 0 is fine. I think it's a pretty good card. The ability to use the Learn thing is really, really powerful. Saw It Coming, just a good counter. Prismari Command is just a solid card. Behold is good for drawing. Big Score is good for drawing. Unexpected Windfall is good for drawing. Invoke Calamity allows you to recast stuff, and those recast cards are, they trigger everything. This doesn't say cast a spell from your hand. This says when you cast a non-creature spell. Invoke Calamity, allowing you to get back a lot of these cheap spells, will just trigger that. It'll trigger Electrostatic Field. It'll trigger your Prowesses. It'll trigger your Flame Breather. It'll trigger your Smoldering Egg. Like, pretty crazy. Magma Opus is here just kind of as a really powerful card. Deals a lot of damage, taps permanents, creates a 4/4, creates treasure tokens. It's just a useful card. Really powerful with Hinata out on field, and it can be replayed with Invoke. It's pretty fine. Sorceries. Not quite as exciting as the instance. Got a beautiful alt art Faithless Looting here. It's just a good card. Same as Expressive Iteration. There's a reason it's banned in Explorer. Rare Part is fine. It's mostly just to target artifacts and enchantment. The 3 damage can be usable, but we know why you have it. Solve the Equation to find instants and sorceries to solve answers. Winged Words to draw. Shatter the Sky and Farewell to wipe off the board in several ways. Amelia's Call and Shatter Skull are there as dual-sided, also giving you extra lands in the deck, while also just being generally powerful sorceries. Alrund's Epiphany is Alrund's Epiphany. You don't really need a reason to run it in a Spellslinger deck like this. As far as our artifacts go, it's Arcane, Replicating, Celestis, Key to the Archives. Key to the Archive is just really good. I think it's probably one of the best artifacts, flat out. Its spellbook is really powerful. You combine that with the fact that it gives you 2 mana after it untaps, it ramps you really hard. Celestis and Replicating can do similar stuff. Arcane Signet is just a great card to have as well, but like, it's just a general statement of like, all of those are just really good artifacts that help you ramp. Our enchantments, however, are actually one of the more important parts. Wizard class allows you to have no max hand size, and allows you to draw 2 cards upon upgrade, and then when you draw a card, you put counters on creatures you control. You're already going wide because of all of the stuff from your young pyromancers, from one of your planeswalkers, we'll get to in a minute, and from your commander as well. This will let you go big, because a lot of these cards that we have will allow you to draw extra cards. And it just combines really well with Wizard's class. It's very slow to get off the ground, as you need to have to play it, and then you need to pay 3 mana, and then pay another 3 mana, 2 of which need to be blue. So it's a little slow, but it's really powerful if you can get it working in a longer game. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is just good. The Goblin Shaman's great. Allows you to loot yourself, that's great. Kiki Jiki is great. That's all. Double Vision allows you to double cast spells, which is just really useful when you're wanting to cast a lot of spells. Arcane Bombardment allows you to cast stuff from your graveyard, and allows you to cast a bunch of free ones, which, if you notice, all of my things don't talk about casting from hand, they talk about casting spells. Arcane Bombardment, really good synergy. The mana base is the mana base. It's make a good mana base for yourself. Mana base for Historic Brawl Commander is a whole thing. I can't help you with that. Planeswalkers, though, I can help you with. Wandering Emperor is just a really good Planeswalker right now. It's 2 white, so it's not always going to work out with whatever mana you have in hand, but it's a really good Planeswalker. Same with Teferi, who slows the sunset. He can give you mana advantage by allowing you to untap artifacts and lands, as well as possibly tap opponent creatures, just gaining life. You can use him to just mill through your own library to look for stuff you need, and if you can get his -7, you're going to be unstoppable on a spell-based deck. But let's talk about the other ones, the more important, in my opinion, Planeswalkers. Narset limits your opponents to not being able to draw, while also giving you the opportunity to hunt through the top cards of your library. Saheeli makes a ton of 1/1 servos on the ground, and you can make artifacts become copies of another target artifact or creature. It's pretty good, because you can copy stuff like your Kessig Flame Breathers and Electrostatic Fields to start plinking your enemy for a bunch of extra damage, or your Goblin Electromancer to make stuff even cheaper, but overall, she mostly synergizes with the you make a ton of 1/1 servos and you go really wide to cover the ground. Narset of the Ancient Way is really good. Gaining life, adding mana, and being able to only cast non-creature spells. Oh no! Look at all these non-creature spells we have to cast. And then also being able to draw and discard, and getting an emblem, possibly. Honestly, though, the +1 is the most powerful thing about this, and it's a really big target because people don't want it to get to +6. Because when you get it to 6, you can -6 it, and all of a sudden, if you have Narset's emblem, and you have an upgraded Ashmouth, and you have a Kessig Flame Breather and an Electrostatic Field, you cast 1 spell, it's 1, 2, 4, 6 damage per spell cast. And you have tons of free mana from your Wind's Fury, and we have tons of really cheap cards in here to cast. We have tons of expensive sorceries we could just cast as well, and we could be doubling with Double Vision and Arcane Bombardment. You get the idea. It's a pretty cool and fun deck. I've been having a lot of fun with it. It's by no means optimized or perfect. Feel free to leave suggestions down in the description. I'll try and remember to put a deck list of what I've been using so that y'all can all see it as well. But for now, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I hope to catch you in the next one.